went to Korea for Golden Week for a couple of days, and I'm not an expert in South Korea or anything, so don't ask me questions. I just wanted to share with you some of my observations in the smartphone market. I've been doing a bit of research about what it's like there, and probably some of you are aware of this, so sorry this is not new for you, but some of you who have never been to North Korea, sorry. So you will be back here. I'd like to show you a few things what I observed there. First thing, South Korea is kind of similar to Japan in many ways. I think it's not too dissimilar, and it's kind of in between China and Japan in terms of technology development. You have some very modern area like Gangnam. You can see here it's famous for the song that was out like a number of years ago. But you also have very traditional areas where it's much more like the Japan like 50 years ago. You kind of there's variation in terms of kind of landscapes and culture that you see there. But what's interested me during my trip was what's happening in the technology fields, and there's some interesting stuff on the TV side. For example, they have these curved TVs. For actually very, very large screens where they actually curve the side of the TV so you avoid distortion of the picture. I don't think I've seen that in Japan so far, so I think it's pretty new. And most of their TVs are like 4K standards, at least the one they advertise nowadays. So I think they're pretty advanced in terms of TVs, and the leader usually in that field is Samsung and LG. And the TVs are cheaper than Japan, but that's obvious, I think you already know that. What was interesting was the smartphone markets. As you may be aware, Samsung is one of the leaders smartphone maker in the world. And of course, as I went to Korea, I expected Samsung to be everywhere. And I was not disappointed because, as you can see, the market is actually led by Samsung in a very large manner. About 60%, 15% LG. I don't know about Pantech, I never heard of it before. And Apple is actually a minor player in the market. I didn't expect that to be that wide margin. And just to give you a sense of how it's different from the Japan markets, in the Japan markets, Apple is about 35%. And it's the first manufacturer in Japan. And it's all fragmented in other manufacturers in Japan. You have Sharp, you have Sony, and other players. We have about 12, 14%. So it's very fragmented in Japan with the leader being clearly Apple. So it's funny that you see that in Korea it's not happening the same way. Apple is not very strong, and the local manufacturers are actually stronger than Apple, most of them. But what struck me the most when I went there was when I was in the train, on the subway, I was looking at people around, they all have these huge ass phones. And I'm not kidding when I say huge, like I have a Galaxy S3 like 1 year ago or something. And I already thought at the time I bought this, it's this large, this is like much bigger, I need 2 hands to hold this. But when I saw what they're using, I said, no, they really need 2 hands to hold this. This is really huge, like they go to 5.5 to like 7 inches kind of size of phones. And that's what they call the phablets, like kind of phone tablets in a way, in between the tablet and the phone. And that's actually accounting for about 40% of the Korean markets. That's the last year's number, I don't know this year, but probably very similar. And that's something that's very unique to Korea. As you can see in the worldwide, you have very few of those phones. Specifically what you call a Galaxy Note 3 is one of those, would be entering in the kind of phablet mode. It's very minor portion of the market outside South Korea. And in South Korea, it's actually very, very close to being the leading kind of phone or smartphone. And yeah, this is just to give you an idea. This is your iPhone 5, and this is the kind of range we have in Korea. And you have even bigger one than those. And I was actually talking with a few Korean people when I was there to understand why they were using these big phones. And I only had a few samples of discussion, so I can't say if it's really the real reason. But a number of them told me that it's more practical to have big screen to actually press the text, to enter text. They have this kind of interface similar to the Japanese way. And they say you type much faster if you have bigger screen, you're more precise, and so on. I also suspect they do a lot of gaming on their phones, and I think they probably enjoy having bigger screen and gaming. My hypothesis, I'm not sure if it's really true, but anyway, the fact is they love to have really big phones. And it's the only market I've seen so far like that. And Apple is actually reacting, moving in that direction. I think you've heard probably about this, but iPhone 6 that will be out I think later this year. They have a number of versions that will be coming out, but one of them is actually a kind of tablet size of iPhone 6, which will be 5.7 I think inches wide, so it's really pretty big. Very similar in size to the Galaxy Note 3. So they're also, I think, interested to tap into that South Korean market, and this is directly, I think, aiming at that market. One other thing that was interesting when I was visiting South Korea was the fact that actually most people are using KakaoTalk, which is their kind of WhatsApp application there of choice. And KakaoTalk actually came out pretty late after most of the other competitors in 2010, and they actually managed to increase their share very, very quickly on the markets, and they became a leader very, very fast, leading everything behind, even Line or WhatsApp, whatever. So I wanted to know a bit more about that history, and I found out that they actually, in terms of volume, they're actually exchanging billions of messages every day. And if you put that number back to the number of people using this application in Korea, that's about like 150 messages per day per person. On average, so it must be like a lot more for like the extremes of that. And that's like about an hour of conversation on this application every day. This is huge. And where this came from actually is it's coming from a guy that used to have a very big mobile game company. It's called Hangame. If you're familiar with Korean online games, you probably heard of Kansai because they made lots of like online RPGs and so on. But he made his fortune. He made his fortune with that, and after a while, he decided to focus more on the application. And he fusion emerged his company with another conglomerate called NHN. You can see here. And then they worked on WhatsApp. And this is the guy I'm talking about. It's called Kim Yong-soo. I'm not sure if the name is correctly pronounced, but yeah, that's his name. And what was interesting about this story is that when they developed KakaoTalk, they used the 4-2 method, something like they use there. And 4-2 stands for like 4 members. So you would have a very limited team, like 2 developers, 1 designer, and 1 planner, working together for only 2 months. And they would reach a prototype of application. And if they are not satisfied with the results, they just can the project and move to something else. And KakaoTalk was actually one of those applications they did in 2 months, released it, and it picked up a lot of steam right after it was released. And then they kept working on it, of course. But it's really interesting to see that such a major product was just built by very few people in the first place, and was using a very kind of fast-paced development process. One thing was interesting is that KakaoTalk was also picked up actually on the market very quickly because it was free first, and it was a very low barrier in terms of entry to the application. Like you don't need to register an account, you don't need to create a username or anything. It uses your phone number as an identifier. And then it finds your friends through their phone number that's stored in your device. So basically, you don't have to do anything. You can directly, as soon as you download the app and start it, you can directly chat with your friends without having to do any steps. So it's very low friction, and most of that, I think, is the reason why it picked up so easily in Korea, and also because it was promoted locally by the local companies. But that's one of the reasons why I think it was very popular, and still is nowadays. Another interesting thing about South Korea is that Google is not the search engine of choice. They use Naver, and one of the reasons, apparently they have better search results with Naver for Korean contents, but more importantly, they actually have kind of question and answers type of system, just like Yahoo Answers or like Stack Overflow also, where people exchange, ask questions and get answers, and this is basically the main reason why people use Naver, is to kind of have social exchange of information. And this is something that they're using Naver for, compared to searching Google or anything else. So this is something really unique. I think I don't think there's many markets like that where you see Google being a minor player again. So it's really interesting to see that Korea has lots of those particularities, even though it's a very developed market. So you may wonder what's the point of this presentation. There's not really any point actually, but just wanted to share some observation, and you could say like, even like a small person can change the course of the world because of small players like that. But I think what's more important is that it's interesting to see that even in developed markets, where we expect to see something very similar to what you have in your own developed markets, actually you can see very different trends because the needs, the people, the culture may be different, and the expectation may be very different as well. And there's also a way you can see there are opportunities to disrupt local markets, even against very big players like Google or Apple that have tons of money, but money is not the right reason to have success in the market. Knowing your market consumers, knowing what they want, and having the right product is what matters the most. And I think Korea is a great example of this happening at a small market and probably expanding as well to other markets as it grows as well. Because those competitors are now looking at expanding outside of Korea, and I think you've seen what the phablets are currently expanding because of the involvement of Apple. So maybe this kind of larger phone will also be more and more popular, maybe in between the tablets and the phone and other markets from now on. Not sure what the future holds, but it's something we have to watch, and it will be interesting because it will probably change also the usage habits. Especially if you have a larger screen, larger phone, you can do other things than just what you're regularly doing every day. So now I'll take your question. Again, I'm not an expert.
I missed that you expressed about 4-2 method. 2 is at 2 months.
2 months, yeah. 4 people for 2 months.
2 to 4.
Sorry,
4 to 2 months.
4 people for 2 months.
4 people, okay.
2 designers, 1 planner, and 2 developers, 1 planner, 1 designer, working for 2 months.
What's the future for Samsung? Are they going into the blender market?
Your questions.
I'm sorry. No, when you were there, or from your reading, in terms of display technology, the battery technology, where are they going to take the phone?
Well, Samsung is a conglomerate, just like Sony or Panasonic are in Japan. So they do tons of different products. And it's the main conglomerate in South Korea. So they expand in all the markets where they can play. And they are heavily supported by the government. So obviously they get lots of capital through taxes and so on. So they have kind of unlimited, research budget in that sense. And that's why they were able to fight against the Japanese companies in the first place, I think. But where they're going, I think, is very hard to say. But I think on the phone market side, I think they're becoming progressively one of the leaders, maybe even faster than Apple, because Android is picking up faster than Apple can react for. And yeah, that's all I can say.
What's the arrangement between Google and Samsung? Is that...
The newest phone, they cut it off. It's LG for this phone.
It's still running Android.
Yeah, it's still Android. But Samsung is also developing another OS for the name.
Tizen.
Tizen, yeah. Which is QNX based? No,
not sure. That was next.
Right. And so I guess Samsung is trying to also develop alternatives to Android because they don't want to rely only on Google in the future. I'm not sure whether they'll be successful doing that because Android is the main platform of our applications. Yeah. So it's going to be very hard to build a new platform from scratch. And Microsoft is already seeing that with their system. So I guess Android is going to stay anyway, I believe, for the near future.
Thank you.
So smartphone for Samsung and also the searching for neighbor. Is there any popular US service or product in Korea?
US product?
Yeah.
Video games, maybe? StarCraft?
Video games?
StarCraft.
Maybe one of the only leaders in terms of online games in American games. But apart from that, I can't think. Because just like if you go to an electronic store in Korea, it's just like Japan. You have all these Korean companies making products, to cater for their markets. So they're making everything from lamps to washing machine and everything. Just like Panasonic or other brands here in Japan.
But here in Japan, a lot of, especially the software that has a certain share made by the United States. But is there any kind of similar situation?
Well, Android is software made by I think US company. So that sense, Android is one of the success of the US.
How about other Google sites like Google Drive, including the Google spreadsheet?
I'm not sure about that because they don't use very much Google. I'm not sure how much you use like Gmail stuff like that either. So I have no idea, how much of this service they actually use.